Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a world before the electric light bulb, a time so dark you'd probably trip over your own feet before breakfast. Picture yourself in a cave, squinting at shadows, or maybe a drafty medieval hut, praying your candle doesn't snuff out. We're starting at the very beginning of humanity's quest to push back the night, and trust me, it's a journey that'll make you grateful for that lamp on your nightstand. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and drop a comment below with your city and the time right now. Maybe something like Chicago, 9 p.m. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in a chilly cave, somewhere in prehistoric Europe, about 40,000 years ago. The air smells of damp stone and smoke, and your bare feet shuffle on the gritty floor. It's night, and outside, the darkness is so thick it feels like a living thing, pressing against the cave's mouth. You're not alone. There's a small group of people huddled around a pile of sticks, their faces lit by the flickering glow of a fire. This is it, the first big win in humanity's war against the dark. Fire isn't just warmth, it's light, safety, a way to keep the wolves at bay. You kneel closer, feeling the heat on your face, watching sparks drift up like tiny stars. This fire is your lifeline, and you're already wondering how you'll keep it going till morning. Now, let's get one thing straight. This isn't just a random campfire. Archaeologists have found evidence of controlled fire use dating back at least 400,000 years, maybe even 1,000,000. That's the mainstream history bit. Our ancestors figured out how to tame flames, probably by striking flint or rubbing sticks until their hands ached. It wasn't easy. You try rubbing 2 sticks together for an hour and see if you don't start cursing the Stone Age. But once they got it, fire changed everything. It let people cook food, which made their brains bigger over time, and it turned night into something less terrifying. You're looking at the glow on the cave walls, where someone scratched crude drawings of bison. That's art, born from light. Here's a weird little fact, though. Some caves, like those in Lascaux, France, have these crazy deep chambers with paintings that could only have been made with artificial light. Think about it. You're lugging a burning branch down a pitch-black tunnel, hoping it doesn't go out, just to paint a deer on a wall. Why? Were they showing off? Leaving a message? Historians still argue over it, tossing around theories about rituals or storytelling. Nobody knows for sure, but you can imagine the effort, the smoke stinging your eyes as you hold the flame steady. You shift on the cave floor, your stomach growling. Someone tosses another log on the fire, and the flames leap higher, casting long shadows. You're starting to get why this matters. Without this light, you're stuck going to bed when the sun does, like some kind of solar-powered chicken. But fire's got its downsides. It's finicky. One gust of wind, and you're screwed. Plus, it's not exactly portable. You can't just stuff a campfire in your pocket and head out. And don't get me started on the smoke. Your eyes are watering already, and you're pretty sure your hair smells like a barbecue gone wrong. Scholars still debate when exactly humans mastered fire. Some say it was Homo erectus. Others point to Neanderthals. And the dates keep shifting as new fossils turn up. What's clear is that by the time you're sitting in this cave, fire's a big deal. You're watching the flames dance, and it's almost hypnotic. You can see why people stared into fires for hours. It's like the world's first TV. But you're also tired. Your eyelids heavy. The fire's warm, sure, but it's not enough to make the night feel safe. You're already dreaming of something better, something that doesn't need constant babysitting. As you curl up on a pile of hides, the fire crackles softly, and you can hear the others breathing, maybe snoring. Outside, the night is endless, but here, in this tiny circle of light, you feel a spark of hope. Humanity's just getting started, and this flickering flame is the first step towards something bigger. You don't know it yet, but you're on a path that'll lead to candles, gas lamps, and eventually, a little glass bulb that'll change the world. For now, though, you're just trying to stay warm and not let the fire go out. And good luck with that. You're blinking awake in a drafty medieval village, sometime around the 14th century, your breath visible in the chilly air. The cave and its fire are long gone, replaced by a cramped wooden hut with a thatched roof that's leaking in one corner. It's dusk, and the world outside is turning a bruised purple. You fumble for something to light up this gloomy space, your fingers brushing against a waxy stick on a rickety table. Welcome to the age of candles, where humanity's still wrestling with the dark, but now with a bit more style. You strike a flint, and a tiny flame sputters to life, casting a warm glow across the room. It's not much, but it's enough to keep you from tripping over the cat. Candles are a big deal in this era, and you're holding one made from tallow, basically animal fat that smells like a mix of burnt bacon and regret. Beeswax candles exist, but those are for fancy folks like monks or nobles who can afford to burn money, literally. You're stuck with the cheap stuff, and as you light it, the flame wobbles, dripping hot wax onto your hand. You wince, muttering something about how medieval life is not as romantic as it sounds. Still, this candle is your lifeline. Without it, you're fumbling in the dark. And trust me, you don't want to knock over the chamber pot. Zooming out, candles have been around for ages. Think ancient Egypt, where they used rushlights, basically reeds dipped in fat. By the Middle Ages, they're everywhere, from peasants' huts to grand cathedrals. You're in England now, and candles are so essential they're taxed. That's right, the government's got a piece of your light bill. A single candle might give you a few hours of dim light, enough to sew, read, or avoid stepping on the kids' toys. Except here, the toys are probably just sticks. You hold the candle closer, noticing how the flame dances, throwing shadows that make the room feel alive. Okay, picture this. You're not just lighting your hut. In big cities like Paris, chandeliers are starting to show up in wealthy homes, dripping with dozens of candles. You'd need a ladder and a death wish to light one of those. But here's a quirky detail. Some medieval households kept candle clocks. They'd mark the wax with lines, and as it burned down, they'd know how much time had passed. Imagine you're trying to time your bread baking, eyeballing a melting candle like it's a stopwatch. It's wildly inaccurate, and you can't help but laugh at the thought of someone yelling, "The roast is done in 2 inches of wax." You set the candle in a holder, careful not to let it tip. Fire's still a risk. Whole towns have burned because someone got careless with a flame. You're starting to see why people went to bed early back then. Maintaining this light is a chore. You've got to trim the wick every hour, or it smokes like a chimney, and if the wind picks up, your candle's toast. You glance outside where the village is going dark, house by house. It's quiet, except for the occasional dog barking, or someone shouting about a cow wandering off. Scholars still tussle over when candles became widespread in Europe. Some say the Romans had them nailed down. Others argue it wasn't until the early Middle Ages that they were common in homes. Either way, you're living it now, and it's a grind. You're tempted to blow out the candle and call it a night, but you've got work to do. Maybe mending a shirt or writing a letter by this feeble light. The glow's cozy, sure, but it's also a reminder of how limited your world is. You can't see past the edge of the table, and the night feels like it's closing in. As you sit there, the candle burns lower, and you're struck by how much effort goes into something so simple. You're not just fighting darkness, you're fighting time, gravity, and a budget that doesn't stretch to beeswax. But there's a strange beauty in it too. The flame's soft, almost alive, and it's all you've got to push back the night. You lean back, the chair creaking, and wonder what's next. Somewhere out there, people are dreaming of a light that doesn't drip, doesn't smoke, and doesn't need constant babysitting. You're not there yet, but you can feel the world inching closer. You're stumbling through the foggy streets of London, 1820s, your boots slipping on wet cobblestones. The air smells of coal dust and damp wool, and the city's alive with the clatter of horse carts and shouts of street vendors. It's evening, and the sky's a murky gray, but the streets aren't dark. Not entirely. You pause under a hissing gas lamp, its pale glow cutting through the mist. Welcome to the age of gaslight, where the Industrial Revolution's kicking into high gear, and humanity's finally got a way to light up the night without setting the house on fire. You tilt your head, watching the flame flicker inside its glass cage, and you can't help but feel a little impressed. Gas lamps are the hot new thing, and you're standing in a city that's proud to show them off. They're not just for rich folks either. London's got thousands of these lamps by now, lining streets, theaters, and even some fancy homes. You're looking at one powered by coal gas, piped in from massive gasworks on the city's edge. It's a marvel, really. You don't need to trim a wick, or pray the wind doesn't blow it out. Just turn a valve, strike a match, and bam, light. But it's not all rosy. The lamp's giving off a faint whiff of sulfur, and you're pretty sure you don't want to breathe too deeply. Let's zoom out for the big picture. Gas lighting started popping up in Europe around the late 1700s, with guys like William Murdoch figuring out how to burn gas from coal to make light. By the time you're walking these streets, it's a game changer. Factories can run longer, shops stay open past dusk, and you're not stuck going to bed at 6 p.m. You pass a theater, its entrance blazing with gas chandeliers, and you can hear the crowd inside laughing. This is the mainstream history bit. Gaslights fueling the Industrial Revolution, making cities bigger, busier, and a little less scary at night. But there's a quirky side to this. You ever hear of link boys? These were kids who'd hang around with torches, guiding people home before street lamps were common. Now, with gas lamps everywhere, they're out of a job. You spot one sulking in an alley, his torch unlit, probably muttering about progress stealing his gig. It's kind of sad, but also funny. Imagine being a kid whose whole career got replaced by a pipe and a flame. You toss him a coin, feeling a bit guilty, and keep walking. You're starting to notice the downsides of gaslight, though. The lamps are bright, sure, but they're not exactly safe. You pass a pub where someone's grumbling about a gas leak that made half the street woozy last week, and the light's not as cozy as a candle. It's harsh, almost clinical, making everyone look like they haven't slept in a month. You're also sweating a bit, because these lamps throw off heat like nobody's business. You're half tempted to fan yourself with your hat, but that'd just make you look like a dork. There's still some debate among historians about how fast gaslighting spread. Some say it was a city-by-city thing, with London and Paris leading the charge. Others argue smaller towns were quicker to adopt it because they had less to lose. Either way, you're living in the thick of it, and it's a weird mix of thrilling and unsettling. You stop at a corner, watching a lamplighter, a guy with a long pole, ignite another lamp down the street. It's almost theatrical, the way he moves, like he's conjuring light out of thin air. You keep moving, the gas lamps casting long shadows that stretch and twist as you pass. The city feels alive in a way it never did before, but it's not perfect. You're dodging puddles, trying not to think about what's in them, and the constant hiss of the lamps is starting to get on your nerves. Still, you can't deny the magic of it. Night's not the enemy anymore. It's a canvas, painted with light. You're wondering what could possibly top this? What kind of genius it'd take to make light even easier, cleaner, brighter. You're not there yet, but you can feel the world buzzing with possibility. You're sitting in a smoky London coffee house, 1830s. The air thick with the scent of roasted beans and damp overcoats. It's late afternoon, and the gas lamps outside are just starting to glow. But inside, the buzz is about something new. Electricity. You're at a worn wooden table, nursing a cup of coffee that's more grit than glory, surrounded by folks in top hats and waistcoats, all chattering like they've just seen the future. You lean in, catching snippets of wild ideas. Light without fire, power from wires. It's all rumors and half-baked theories, but you can feel the excitement crackling like static in the air. Electricity's not exactly new, but it's still a mystery to most. You're hearing names like Faraday and Volta tossed around, and someone's waving a newspaper article about experiments with batteries and coils. You're no scientist, but you get the gist. There's this invisible force that can make things move, spark, maybe even glow. You glance at the candle on your table, its flame wobbling in the draft, and you can't help but think it looks a bit pathetic compared to the stories you're hearing. You're starting to imagine a world where light doesn't need a match or a gas pipe. The big historical picture here is that electricity's been studied for decades. In the 1800s, Michael Faraday's work on electromagnetic induction, basically how to generate electricity with magnets, is laying the groundwork for everything that's coming. You're in a time when scientists are starting to see practical uses for this stuff, not just parlor tricks like shocking each other for laughs. You overhear a guy in a fancy cravat say something about electric light being the next big thing, and you're half convinced he's had too much coffee. but the idea sticks with you, like a song you can't unhear. There's a funny little detail, though. Some of these coffeehouse dreamers are obsessed with animal electricity. You catch a story about experiments where scientists hooked up frog legs to batteries, watching them twitch like they're dancing. It's creepy and hilarious, and you're picturing a lab full of frogs putting on a show. Apparently, this is how they figured out electricity could move things, but you're just glad you're not the one cleaning up the frog mess. You take another sip of your coffee, grimacing at the taste, and wonder what else this weird force can do. You're starting to notice the skeptics, too. A grumpy old man at the next table's muttering about how electricity's dangerous, how it'll never replace gas lamps. You can't blame him. Gas is everywhere, reliable, and you don't need to understand physics to use it. But you're also hearing whispers of demonstrations, like lights powered by batteries, glowing without a flame. They're not practical yet. Too dim, too expensive, but they're real. You're itching to see one for yourself, to know if the hype's worth it. You push your empty cup aside, the chatter around you growing louder, more urgent. Historians still argue over when the idea of electric light really took hold. Some point to the 1830s, when guys like Faraday were making waves. Others say it wasn't until the 1870s that people took it seriously. You're right in the middle of this shift, and it's a strange place to be. You're surrounded by folks who are half in love with the future, half clinging to the past. You step outside, the gas lamps casting their familiar glow. But you're distracted. You're thinking about those rumors, those sparks, that invisible power. It's like the world's holding its breath, waiting for someone to flip a switch. You wander down the street, your boots clicking on the pavement, the coffeehouse noise fading behind you. The city's alive, but it feels like it's on the edge of something bigger. You're not sure what's coming, but you're curious. You're imagining a light that doesn't flicker, doesn't stink, doesn't need a pipe or a wick. It's a wild dream, but you're starting to believe it might just happen. You pull your coat tighter against the chill, the gaslight guiding you home. But your mind's already somewhere else, chasing that electric hum. You're crammed into a dimly lit lecture hall in London, 1808, the air buzzing with anticipation and the faint smell of ozone. You're shoulder to shoulder with curious folks, scientists, merchants, even a few wide-eyed kids, all staring at a wooden stage where Humphrey Davy, the rock star chemist of the day, is about to blow your mind. He's fiddling with a tangle of wires and a clunky battery the size of a bread box. You're not sure what's coming, but when he flips a switch, a blinding arc of light erupts between two carbon rods, like a tiny sun. You shield your eyes, half laughing, half awestruck. This is it, the first electric light you've ever seen. Davy's arc lamp is a beast, and you're feeling the heat from where you're sitting. It's not like any candle or gas lamp you've known. It's raw, intense, like staring into a lightning bolt. You're trying to wrap your head around it. Electricity, that weird force you heard about in coffeehouses, is making this happen. No flame, no gas, just pure power. You glance around, and everyone's got the same look. Part wonder, part, what the heck did I just see? You're already imagining this light in every home, but then Davy shuts it off, and the room feels darker than before. Let's ground this in history. Humphrey Davy's arc lamp, demonstrated at the Royal Institution, is a big deal. It's one of the first times anyone's used electricity to create light bright enough to rival the sun. The setup's simple. Electricity jumps between two carbon electrodes, creating a glowing arc. But it's not practical. The thing guzzles power, burns out fast, and needs a battery bigger than your average cow. Still, you're witnessing the spark of something huge, a proof that electric light isn't just a pipe dream. There's a quirky detail you can't unsee, though. The arc lamp's light is so harsh, it turns everyone's face a sickly green. You're looking at the guy next to you, and he looks like he's about to star in a ghost story. It's almost funny, but also a reminder this tech's got a long way to go. You're picturing Davy's lab assistants, probably cursing as they lug heavy batteries around just to keep this light show going for a few minutes. You're grateful you're just watching, not hauling. You shift in your seat, the wooden bench creaking, as Davy starts explaining how it works. You catch words like current, and electrodes, but it's mostly gibberish to you. What's clear is the energy in the room. People are whispering, sketching notes, dreaming up ways to use this. You're thinking about streets lit up like daylight, or maybe theaters where the light doesn't catch the curtains on fire. But there's a catch. You can smell the burning carbon, and the lamp's already flickering. It's a diva, demanding constant attention, and you're not sure it's ready for the real world. Scholars still debate how much credit Davy deserves for electric light. Some say he's the father of it all. Others argue he was just showing off ideas that were already floating around, like stuff from Volta or earlier experimenters. You're not picking sides, but you're impressed. You're watching the lamp sputter, and it's like a glimpse of the future. Bright, messy, and a little dangerous. You're starting to see why this matters, why people are so obsessed with taming electricity. It's not just light, it's power, possibility, a way to rewrite the rules of night. You file out of the hall, your eyes still adjusting to the gaslit street outside. The arc lamp's glow is burned into your mind, and you're buzzing with questions. Can they make it smaller? Cheaper? Less likely to blind you? You're walking home, the city's familiar shadows feeling a bit less permanent now. You're not sure what's next, but you're hooked. That dazzling, temperamental light is a promise, and you're ready to see where it leads, even if it takes a few more decades to get there. You're in a cluttered workshop, 1870s, somewhere in industrial England, surrounded by glass tubes, tangled wires, and the faint smell of burnt metal. Your hands are smudged with soot, and you're squinting at a fragile thread glowing faintly inside a vacuum bulb. You're one of a dozen inventors. Maybe you're even Humphrey Swan or one of his pals, chasing the dream of a practical electric light. The arc lamp's old news. It's too wild, too power-hungry. You're after something gentler, a light that can sit on a table and not burn the house down. You tweak the filament, hold your breath, and pop. It burns out in seconds. You sigh, muttering something about needing a nap. This is the filament chase, and you're neck deep in it. Everyone's trying to find the magic material that'll glow bright and last longer than a sneeze. You're testing everything: cotton threads, platinum wires, even bits of charred paper. Each time you pump the air out of the bulb to keep the filament from catching fire, but it's still a gamble. You're surrounded by broken glass and failed experiments, and you're starting to think this whole incandescent light idea is a cruel joke. But you keep going, because every flicker feels like a step closer. Historically, this is the messy middle of the light bulb story. By the 1870s, inventors across Europe and America are racing to crack the code. Humphrey Swan in England, Hermann Sprengel with his vacuum pump, and others are all in the game. The goal's simple: make a filament that glows when electricity runs through it, without melting or exploding. You're part of a global relay, each inventor passing the baton, building on the last guy's failures. You're not alone, but it sure feels lonely when your bulb goes dark for the 100th time. There's a weird detail you can't stop thinking about. Some guy tried using human hair as a filament. Yeah, actual hair from someone's head. You're picturing a scientist snipping locks off his beard, wiring them up, and praying for a miracle. It didn't work, obviously, but you have to admire the desperation. You're chuckling as you sweep up another shattered bulb, wondering if you should start raiding your own scalp. It's moments like this that make you question your life choices, but also keep you hooked. You're starting to feel the pressure. Gas companies are laughing at you, saying electric light's a fad. You're burning through money, and your workshop's a fire hazard. But there's something addictive about the process. You're tweaking the voltage, swapping out materials, and every now and then, you get a glow that lasts a whole minute. It's like a tease from the universe, daring you to keep going. You're scribbling notes, your handwriting a mess, trying to figure out what went wrong this time. Maybe the vacuum wasn't tight enough, or the filament was too thin. Historians still argue over who got closest to the finish line first. Swan's got a strong case. He showed off a working incandescent bulb in 1878, but others, like William Sawyer or Alban Mann, were nipping at his heels. You're not worried about credit right now. You just want something that works. You're staring at the latest dud, the glass still warm, and you can't help but feel a mix of frustration and hope. You're close. You can feel it. But close isn't good enough. You lean back in your creaky chair, the workshop quiet except for the hum of a distant generator. Outside, the world's still lit by gas, flickering and familiar. But you're dreaming of something else, a soft, steady light that doesn't need a flame or a fortune to keep burning. You're not there yet, and your eyelids are heavy from too many late nights. You're tempted to call it quits for the day, but you're already reaching for another filament, another bulb, another chance. The dark's not winning this fight, not if you can help it. You're in a cluttered lab in Menlo Park, New Jersey, 1879, surrounded by the hum of generators and the sharp tang of ozone. You're standing next to Thomas Edison, his shirt sleeves rolled up, his hair a mess from too many late nights. The workbench is littered with glass bulbs, wires, and half-eaten sandwiches. You're both staring at a fragile filament, cotton thread of all things, glowing softly inside a vacuum-sealed bulb. It's been burning for hours, not seconds. And you're holding your breath, afraid to jinx it. This is Edison's moment, and you're right there with him, feeling the weight of 1,000 failures and the spark of something big. Edison's not the only one in this race, but he's got a knack for making things stick. You're watching him scribble notes, muttering about voltage and resistance, and you're half convinced he's talking to the bulb like it's an old friend. This isn't just about light, it's about persistence. You've seen the piles of busted bulbs, the notebooks full of crossed-out ideas. Edison's tested everything from platinum to paper, and you're pretty sure he's considered using his own socks at this point. But this cotton filament, treated and carbonized, is holding strong, and you're starting to believe it might actually work. Let's put this in context. Edison's work in 1879 is a turning point. He didn't invent the light bulb from scratch. Guys like Humphrey Swan and others laid the groundwork, but he's making it practical. His incandescent bulb, with a high-resistance filament in a near-perfect vacuum, can burn for hours without frying. It's not just a lab trick. It's something you could imagine in a house, a shop, maybe even a whole city. You're standing in the middle of history, and it feels like the air's buzzing with possibility. Or maybe that's just the generator in the corner. There's a funny little story floating around the lab, though. You overhear one of Edison's assistants joking about how they tested filaments with bits of bamboo from a fan in the office. Yeah, bamboo. Like the stuff in your grandma's patio furniture. It's not the main filament yet, but the idea's so random you can't help but smirk. You're picturing Edison waving a bamboo stick like a wizard, and it's a reminder that genius sometimes looks like a guy throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. You're starting to notice the strain, though. The lab's a mess, and everyone's running on coffee and stubbornness. You're helping Edison tweak the setup, adjusting wires while he mutters about patents and investors. The gas companies are circling, ready to call this a flop, and you're feeling the pressure to prove them wrong. Every time the filament glows a little brighter, a little longer, you're tempted to cheer, but you keep it cool. You're not here to jinx it. You're here to see it through. There's still some debate among historians about how much of the credit Edison deserves. Some say he's more of a showman than an inventor, building on Swan's and others' work. Others argue his practical bulb changed the game. You're not picking fights over it. You're too busy watching this filament, its soft glow steady as a heartbeat. You're thinking about what this could mean. No more smoky gas lamps. No more candles dripping wax on your table. It's not perfect yet, but it's close, and you're hooked. You step back, the lab's warmth wrapping around you like a blanket. Outside, the night's pressing against the windows. But in here, it's different. The bulb's light is soft, almost cozy, and you're imagining it everywhere. Street corners, bedrooms, maybe even a theater. You're tired, your eyes heavy from staring at that glow, but you don't want to look away. Edison's already planning the next test, and you're right there with him, ready to see how far this little light can go. The world's about to change, and you're standing at the edge of it. You're still in Edison's Menlo Park lab, late 1879, the air thick with the hum of machinery and the faint scent of burnt cotton. The workbench is a battlefield of glass shards and wire scraps, but your eyes are locked on one bulb, a small, pear-shaped miracle glowing steadily with a warm, golden light. You're standing next to Edison and his crew, all of you barely breathing, watching this carbonized cotton filament burn for over 13 hours now. You're grinning like an idiot, and so's everyone else. This is it, the light bulb moment, the one that's going to flip the world upside down. You're tempted to high-five Edison, but you settle for a quiet nod instead. This bulb isn't just a win. It's a game changer. You're looking at something that can light a room without gas, without flame, without the constant hassle of wicks or leaks. It's not perfect. The filament's fragile, and the vacuum pump's still a pain to maintain. But it's practical. You're imagining this light in your own home, maybe on a desk while you read, or in a shop that doesn't close at dusk. Edison's muttering about scaling up, about factories and patents, and you're starting to see the bigger picture. This isn't just a bulb. It's a whole new way of living. Historically, this is where Edison pulls ahead. His incandescent bulb, patented in 1880, is the first to balance brightness, longevity, and cost. You're in the thick of a revolution, one that builds on decades of work. Swan's filaments, Sprengel's vacuums, Faraday's theories. But Edison's got the vision to make it real, and you're watching him do it. The bulb's glow is steady, not flickering like an arc lamp or hissing like gas. You're almost hypnotized, and you're not alone. The whole lab's got that "we did it" vibe, even if nobody's saying it out loud. There's a quirky detail you pick up, though. Edison's team nicknamed this bulb the little glass egg because of its shape and how delicate it feels. You're chuckling, picturing someone cradling it like an actual egg, whispering sweet nothings to keep it glowing. It's a silly name, but it fits. This thing's fragile, precious, and about to hatch a whole industry. You're careful not to bump the table, because one wrong move and your little glass egg's toast. You're starting to feel the weight of what's happening. The lab's buzzing, but there's tension too. Investors are circling, wanting results yesterday, and rival inventors are out there, tweaking their own bulbs. You're helping Edison test the setup, checking wires and jotting down numbers, and you're struck by how much work goes into this one light. It's not just science. It's grit, money, and a whole lot of coffee. You're wondering how they'll get this into homes, how they'll convince people to ditch gas for something so new, so weird. Historians still tussle over who really invented the light bulb. Edison's the poster boy, but some argue Swan, or even Hiram Maxim got there first, or that it was a team effort stretching back decades. You're not here to settle that fight. You're just soaking in the moment. The bulb's glow is like a promise, a tiny sun that doesn't need to set. You're thinking about cities lit up, nights that feel like day, lives that don't stop when the sun goes down. It's a lot to take in, and your eyelids are heavy, but you're too excited to care. You step closer, the bulb's warmth brushing your face. Outside, the New Jersey night is deep and dark, but in here, it's different. The light's soft, inviting, and you're imagining it everywhere. Streetlights, parlors, maybe even a kid's bedroom. You're tired, but you're buzzing too, caught up in the glow of something new. Edison's already talking about the next step, a public demo to show the world what's possible. You're ready to see it, to watch this little light take on the darkness and win. You're standing in a muddy field outside Menlo Park, New Jersey, December 31st, 1879. Your breath fogging in the crisp winter air. It's New Year's Eve, and you're part of a buzzing crowd. Farmers, reporters, curious locals, all bundled up against the cold, staring at Edison's lab like it's about to launch a rocket. The building's glowing, not with gas or candles, but with dozens of incandescent bulbs, their soft light spilling out like a warm invitation. You're craning your neck, watching as more bulbs flicker on, turning night into something that feels like day. This is Edison's big reveal, the public debut of his light bulb, and you're right in the middle of it. The crowd's whispering, pointing, some folks laughing nervously, like they're not sure this is real. You're close enough to see the bulbs strung along wires, each one a tiny glass miracle, glowing without a flame. You're shivering, but it's not just the cold. You're feeling the weight of this moment. Edison's turned his lab into a stage, and you're one of the lucky ones watching history unfold. You catch a glimpse of him, grinning like a kid who just pulled off the best prank ever, and you can't help but grin back. Let's put this in perspective. This demonstration is a landmark. Edison's showing off a system, not just a bulb. Bulbs, wires, generators, all working together to light up his lab and a few nearby buildings. It's the first public proof that electric light can be practical, reliable, and maybe even affordable someday. You're seeing the seeds of a whole industry, one that'll change how people live, work, and dream. The bulbs aren't perfect. They're still pricey, and the setup's a nightmare. But they're real, and you're watching them shine. There's a funny little detail, though. Some of the crowd's calling the bulbs electric candles, which makes you chuckle. You're picturing a birthday cake covered in these glass eggs, and it's such a goofy image, you almost forget how revolutionary this is. The nickname's cute, but it's also a sign people are trying to wrap their heads around something so new it doesn't fit their old ideas of light. You're tempted to yell, "It's not a candle," but you just keep staring, mesmerized by the glow. You're starting to notice the logistics, though. The generators are chugging away, loud enough to make your teeth rattle, and you're wondering how much coal they're burning to keep this show going. You overhear a reporter muttering about costs, about whether this can compete with gas. You're not worried. You're too caught up in the magic. The light's soft, steady, and it's making the snowflakes glint like tiny stars. You're imagining this everywhere, in cities, towns, maybe even your own kitchen. But you're also tired, your feet aching from standing so long. Historians still argue over how much of this demo was genius versus showmanship. Some say Edison exaggerated the bulb's readiness to wow investors. Others insist this was the moment electric light went mainstream. You're not picking sides. You're just soaking it in. The crowd's cheering now, and you're clapping along, your hands numb from the cold. You're thinking about how this changes everything. Nights that aren't dark, work that doesn't stop, lives that stretch past sunset. It's a lot to take in, and you're feeling a little dizzy, maybe from the excitement, or maybe just the chill. You shuffle closer, the warmth of the crowd keeping you going. The bulbs are still glowing, and you're struck by how ordinary they look. Just glass and wire, yet they're rewriting the rules. Edison's waving to the crowd, and you're waving back, caught up in the moment. You're ready to head home, but you're carrying this light with you. This idea that the dark doesn't have to win. The world's shifting, and you're standing at the edge of it, watching the future flicker to life. You're in a bustling New York office, 1882. The air thick with cigar smoke and the clatter of typewriters. You're sitting across from a group of sharp-suited businessmen, their faces lit by the soft glow of an incandescent bulb hanging from the ceiling. You're part of the team pitching the future. Edison's electric light system, now ready to power whole cities. The men are skeptical, their eyes darting to the gas lamps flickering outside, but you're pointing to the bulb, explaining how it's just the start. This isn't about one light. It's about a network, a grid, a whole industry born to banish the dark. You're buzzing with nervous energy, knowing this meeting could change everything. The room's warm, and you're loosening your collar as you talk about power stations, dynamos, and wires snaking through streets. Edison's not here. He's off tinkering, but you're carrying his vision. You're describing the Pearl Street Station, just fired up in Lower Manhattan, the first commercial power plant in the world. It's feeding electricity to 400 lamps for 85 customers, and you're painting a picture of a city that never sleeps. You're watching the businessmen lean forward, their skepticism cracking as they imagine their factories running all night, their profits soaring. Let's zoom out. This is the birth of the electric power industry. Pearl Street, launched in September 1882, is a proof of concept. Electricity isn't just for labs or rich folks anymore. It's a system with generators, distribution lines, and meters to charge by the kilowatt. You're in the middle of a shift that'll make electric light a household name, not a novelty. The bulb's still the star, but it's the grid that makes it shine, and you're helping sell the idea that power can be as common as water. It's a wild thought, and you're half convinced you're dreaming. There's a quirky detail you slip into the pitch, though. The first customers at Pearl Street had to deal with lamp boys. Kids hired to run around turning bulbs on and off because nobody had invented a proper switch yet. You're chuckling, imagining a kid sprinting up a staircase to twist a bulb for some grumpy banker. It's a clunky start, but it shows how new this all is. Nobody's figured out the kinks, and you're learning as you go. You're hoping the businessmen don't dwell on that part. But it's a good story, and it gets a laugh. You're starting to feel the stakes. Gas companies are fighting back, spreading rumors about electricity being unsafe, and you're dodging questions about costs. You're pointing to the bulb, its glow steady and clean, and you're talking up reliability. No leaks, no fumes. But you're also sweating, because the grid's not cheap to build, and outages are still a thing. You're thinking about the workers digging trenches for cables, the engineers tweaking dynamos, and you're amazed it's holding together at all. You're part of something massive, and it's thrilling, but also a little terrifying. Historians still debate how much Edison's system owed to his rivals. Some say Nikola Tesla's alternating current, not Edison's direct current, was the real future. Others argue Edison's early grid set the standard. You're not here to settle that. You're just trying to get these guys to sign on. You're watching their faces, seeing the moment they start to believe, and you're feeling a rush. This bulb, this power, it's not just light, it's progress, and you're selling it one handshake at a time. You lean back, the bulb's glow catching the edge of your papers. Outside, New York's a mix of gaslit shadows and the first electric sparks, a city caught between old and new. You're thinking about those 400 lamps, their light spreading like a tide, and you're imagining millions more. You're tired, your voice hoarse from talking, but you're not done. The world's waking up to electricity, and you're right there, pushing it forward, one bright idea at a time. You're strolling down a bustling New York street, 1885, the evening air alive with the clop of horse hooves and the chatter of passers-by. The skyline's a mix of brick buildings and smoky chimneys, but your eyes are drawn to the electric lights popping up like fireflies. Shop windows glow with incandescent bulbs, and a few street lamps hum, with a clean, steady light that makes gas lamps look like tired old men. You're living in a city that's starting to stay awake past sunset, and it's changing everything. You pause outside a diner, its sign blazing, and you're struck by how the night feels less like an ending and more like a beginning. Electric lights reshaping life, and you're right in the thick of it. You step into the diner, the bulbs overhead casting a warm glow over checkered tablecloths and steaming coffee cups. People are lingering, reading newspapers or chatting, not rushing home before dark. You're noticing how the light makes everything sharper, colors pop, faces look lively, and you're not squinting to read the menu. It's a small thing, but it's huge. You're thinking about factories running night shifts, theaters packing in late crowds, and kids doing homework without burning their fingers on candles. Let's put this in historical context. By the mid-1880s, electric lighting's spreading fast. Edison's Pearl Street station and its competitors are powering thousands of bulbs across cities like New York, London, and Chicago. It's not just about convenience, it's about time. You're living in an era where night's no longer a hard stop. Businesses stay open later, social life stretches into the evening, and you're feeling the pulse of a world that's suddenly got more hours to play with. The incandescent bulb's at the heart of it, turning darkness into opportunity. There's a quirky detail you overhear at the counter, though. Some folks are complaining about bulb thieves. Apparently, early bulbs were so expensive that people would steal them from sockets in public places, like hotels or train stations. You're chuckling, picturing a sneaky guy in a bowler hat, pocketing a bulb like it's a piece of candy. It's a reminder that this tech's still a luxury, not a given, and you're lucky to be in a city where it's starting to feel normal. You sip your coffee, grateful for the light that's keeping this diner humming. You're starting to see the ripple effects, though. Not everyone's thrilled. You pass a group of lamplighters on the street, their long poles idle, grumbling about losing their jobs to electricity. You're also noticing how the light's changing people's habits. Folks are staying up later, sleeping less, and you're wondering if that's a good thing. The bulbs are clean, sure, but they're not free. And you're hearing whispers about electric bills that sting. You're caught between awe and a nagging sense that progress always comes with a catch. Historians still argue over how quickly electric light changed society. Some say it revolutionized work and leisure overnight. Others think it took decades for most people to feel the impact. especially outside big cities. You're not here to debate. You're just soaking in the scene. You're watching a couple stroll under an electric street lamp, their shadows sharp and clear, and you're struck by how normal this is starting to feel. The night's not scary anymore. It's yours to use, and you're loving it. You leave the diner, the electric glow following you down the street. You're thinking about how this light's rewriting the rules. Work, play, even dreams. You're tired, your legs heavy from walking, but you're not ready to go home. The city's alive, and so are you, carried along by a current of light that's only just beginning to flow. You're wondering what's next, how much brighter this world can get, and you're ready to find out. You're sitting on a park bench in Chicago, 1893, the world's Columbian Exposition in full swing just a few blocks away. The evening air hums with excitement. Vendors hawking souvenirs, kids laughing, and the distant clatter of a Ferris wheel. You're watching electric lights blaze across the fairgrounds, thousands of bulbs turning night into a dazzling spectacle. It's called the White City, and it's a shrine to electricity, with Edison's bulbs and rival systems lighting up fountains, statues, and grand pavilions. You're awestruck, but there's a quiet unease nagging at you. This light's changing the world, sure, but you're starting to see its shadows, things nobody saw coming. The fair's a showcase for what electricity can do. You're picturing the crowds gasping at illuminated waterfalls and spinning dynamos, all powered by a web of wires and generators. It's not just pretty, it's proof that electric light's here to stay, outshining gas and candles for good. You're thinking about how this glow's spreading beyond cities, into towns, maybe even farms someday. But you're also noticing something new. The stars are harder to see. The sky's got this weird haze, like the lights drowning out the night itself. You're wondering if that's the price of progress. Let's anchor this in history. The 1893 World's Fair is a turning point for electric light. It's not just Edison anymore. Westinghouse and Tesla's alternating current are stealing the show, proving they can power big systems cheaper and farther than Edison's direct current. The fair's 200,000 bulbs are a flex, showing millions of visitors what a fully lit world looks like. You're living in a moment when electricity's becoming a symbol of modernity, but it's also starting to reveal its downsides, like the way it's messing with nature's rhythms. There's a strange detail you pick up from a passerby, though. Some folks at the fair are wearing tinted glasses to protect their eyes from electric light, claiming it's too harsh for human vision. You're chuckling, picturing a guy in a straw hat squinting through blue lenses like he's dodging a laser. It's a mix of paranoia and truth. These bulbs are bright, and nobody's quite sure what staring at them all day does to you. You're rubbing your own eyes, wondering if you should get a pair, just in case. You're starting to feel the bigger picture. The fair's glorious, but it's hiding costs. You're thinking about the coal burned to power those bulbs, the smoke choking nearby neighborhoods. You're also hearing whispers about workers, guys stringing wires or tending generators, who've been shocked or worse. Electric light's a miracle, but it's not free, and you're wondering who's paying the real price. There's even talk of animals acting weird, like birds singing at midnight, confused by the endless glow. You're not sure if it's true, but it's unsettling. Historians still debate how much electric light disrupted the natural world. Some say light pollution's effects on sleep, wildlife, even human health weren't noticed until much later. Others argue fairs like this were the first red flags. You're not here to solve it, you're just taking it in. You're watching the fair's lights reflect off a nearby lake, beautiful and eerie, and you're caught between wonder and worry. The world's brighter than ever, but you're starting to miss the dark, just a little. You stand up, stretching your legs. The fair's glow painting the horizon. You're thinking about how this light's reshaping everything. Cities, habits, even the sky. You're tired, your mind buzzing with the day's sights, but you're not ready to leave. The world's racing toward a future that's all light, all the time, and you're along for the ride, wondering what it'll cost to keep the night at bay. You're in a cozy living room, 1970s, somewhere in suburban America, sprawled on a shag carpet with a lava lamp bubbling in the corner. The incandescent bulb in the ceiling fixture hums softly, casting a familiar glow over your dog-eared paperback and a half-empty glass of soda. You're flipping through a magazine, catching an ad for something new, a compact fluorescent bulb promising to save energy and last longer. You're skeptical, raising an eyebrow at the weird, twisty shape. It looks like a glass pretzel. The incandescent's been king for nearly a century, but you're starting to sense its reins getting shaky. You're living in a world where light's evolving again, and you're right there to see it. The incandescent bulbs still everywhere. Your kitchen, your car's headlights, even the streetlights outside. But energy's getting pricey, and you're hearing about oil crises and power bills that make your wallet whimper. You're noticing new options popping up. Fluorescents in offices, sodium vapor lamps on highways, and now these funky bulbs in ads. You're thinking about Edison's little glass egg, how it carried you this far, and you're wondering what's next. The future's bright, sure, but it's also kind of weird, and you're not sure you're ready for change. Let's put this in historical context. The 1970s mark a shift in lighting tech. Incandescent bulbs, while cheap and cozy, are energy hogs. Only about 10% of their power becomes light, the rest just heat. With energy crises hitting hard, inventors are pushing alternatives. Fluorescent bulbs, around since the 1930s, are getting compact enough for homes, and early LEDs, those tiny red dots in your calculator, are starting to hint at bigger things. You're in a transition, where Edison's legacy is fading, and new tech's stepping up to save power and the planet. There's a quirky detail you stumble across in the magazine, though. Apparently, some early fluorescents were tested in chicken coops to boost egg production, because their light mimicked daylight better than incandescents. You're chuckling, picturing a flock of hens squawking under glowing tubes, laying eggs like it's a competition. It's a bizarre side note, but it shows how lighting's not just about humans. It's about tweaking nature, sometimes in the oddest ways. You're tempted to tell your neighbor, just to see their face. You're starting to feel the push and pull of progress. The incandescent's warm, familiar, like an old friend, but you're noticing its flaws. Your bulb's burning hot, and you're pretty sure it's why your room feels like a sauna. You're also thinking about the environment. Those coal plants powering your light aren't exactly kind to the air. The new bulbs sound great on paper, but they're pricey, and you're not thrilled about their cold, clinical glow. You're caught between nostalgia and the nagging sense that change is overdue. Historians still argue over when the incandescent started losing ground. Some point to the 1970s energy crunch as the tipping point. Others say it wasn't until the 1990s, when LEDs got serious, that the shift really kicked in. You're not here to settle that. You're just living it. You're looking at the bulb overhead, its filament glowing like a tiny fire, and you're feeling a mix of gratitude and curiosity. The world's moving on, and you're wondering what your living room will look like in a decade. You lean back, the carpet soft under your hands, the bulbs light, steady, and warm. You're thinking about how far light's come, from caves to cities to this quiet suburb, and how it's still changing. You're tired, your eyes heavy from reading, but you're not ready to flip the switch. The glow's part of you now, but you're ready to see what's next. What new spark will light up the night? You're walking through a bustling city street in 2025. Your sneakers scuffing against the pavement as neon signs and LED billboards flash overhead. It's evening, and the air's alive with the hum of traffic and the chatter of people spilling out of cafes. Every corner's lit up. Street lamps, shop windows, even the tiny screen in your hand, all glowing with crisp, efficient light. You're surrounded by the descendants of Edison's bulb, but they're sleeker, smarter, and sipping power like it's a fine wine. You pause under a smart LED streetlight that dims as you pass, saving energy, and you're struck by how lights become a constant, almost invisible part of your life. These LEDs are everywhere. Your apartment, your office, even the flashlight on your phone. You're thinking about how they've pushed out the old incandescents, those warm, wasteful bulbs you barely see anymore. You're in a world where light's not just about seeing. It's about mood, efficiency, even data. You're noticing how the cafe's lights shift from cool white to a cozy amber, making everyone look like they're in a movie. You're marveling at how far we've come, from flickering flames to lights that practically think for themselves. Let's anchor this in history. LEDs, first developed in the 1960s as dim red dots, became the lighting king by the 2010s. They're insanely efficient, using up to 80% less energy than incandescents, and they last for years, not months. You're living in a time when governments have phased out old bulbs, pushing LEDs as the green choice. They're not just in homes. They're in skyscrapers, greenhouses, even art installations that pulse with color. You're part of a world where light's no longer a luxury. It's a tool, shaping how you live and feel. There's a quirky detail you notice, though. Some cities are using smart LEDs that double as Wi-Fi hotspots or traffic sensors. You're chuckling, picturing a street lamp eavesdropping on your texts or counting cars like a bored kid. It's a bit sci-fi, but it's real. And you're wondering what else these lights can do. You're half expecting one to start giving you weather updates or reminding you to buy milk. It's a reminder that light's not just light anymore. It's part of a bigger, connected world. You're starting to see the trade-offs, though. The LEDs are bright, sometimes too bright, and you're squinting at a billboard that's practically screaming in your face. You're also thinking about the cost. Not just money, but the rare metals mined for these bulbs, the factories churning them out. You're wondering if green is as green as it sounds, or if you're just trading one problem for another. The light's clean, sure, but it's still keeping the night at bay, and you're missing the stars more than you expected. Historians still debate when LEDs truly took over. Some say the 2014 Nobel Prize for blue LEDs was the turning point. Others argue it was earlier, when costs dropped in the 2000s. You're not here to pick a date, you're just living it. You're watching the city pulse with light, each bulb a tiny nod to Edison's first glow, and you're feeling a mix of awe and nostalgia. The world's brighter than ever, but you're wondering what's lost when the darks push so far away. You keep walking, the LEDs guiding your way, their light sharp and steady. You're thinking about how this glow's woven into your life. Work, play, even your late night scrolling. You're tired, your eyes stinging from the day, but you're not ready to turn it off. The light's part of you now, a thread connecting you to that first spark in a cave, that first bulb in a lab. You're wondering where it'll go next, and what new glow will light up the future? You're lying on a soft blanket under a vast, star-filled sky, somewhere far from the city's glow. Maybe a quiet meadow in 2025. The air's cool, scented with grass and pine, and the only sounds are crickets and the faint rustle of leaves. You're staring up at the Milky Way. Its silver streak so bright, it feels like you could touch it. The electric lights, those LEDs, incandescents, all the bulbs you've lived with are gone for now, and you're rediscovering the dark. It's not scary. It's peaceful, like the world's letting out a long, slow breath. You're here to think about light, but also about what it means to let it go. The stars are a reminder of what you've been missing. You're thinking about how electric lights reshaped your life, nights that stretch into day, cities that never sleep. But you're also feeling the pull of this darkness, how it soothes you, slows your heartbeat. You're wondering if maybe the race to light everything up forgot something important. You're not anti-progress. You love your cozy desk lamp, but you're starting to see that light and dark aren't enemies. They're partners, balancing each other. And you're craving a bit of that balance now. Let's ground this in history. The rise of electric light, from Edison's bulb to today's LEDs, has transformed humanity, but it's also sparked a quiet pushback. By the 2000s, people are talking about dark sky preserves, places like this meadow, protected from light pollution so the stars can shine. It's a nod to how light's changed not just our habits, but our connection to nature. You're living in a time when folks are rethinking what progress means, asking if every corner needs to be lit, or if some shadows are worth keeping. There's a funny little detail you recall, though. Some towns are using turtle-friendly lights, amber LEDs that don't confuse baby sea turtles heading to the ocean. You're smiling, picturing tiny turtles waddling under a soft glow, safe, because someone thought to tweak a bulb. It's a small thing, but it's proof that light can be kind, not just relentless. You're tucking that image away, a reminder that progress doesn't have to mean losing everything old or wild. You're starting to feel the weight of it all. You're thinking about the coal burned, the mines dug, the animals thrown off by endless light. You're also thinking about yourself, how you stay up too late, your eyes glued to screens, your sleep a mess. You're wondering if you've been chasing light so hard, you forgot how to rest. The stars are steady, unhurried, and you're letting their calm sink into you. You're not here to undo the bulb's legacy. You're just here to remember that darkness has a place, too. Historians still argue over when we started noticing light's downsides. Some point to the 1980s, when light pollution became a buzzword. Others say it's newer, tied to LED's unstoppable spread. You're not picking a side. You're just lying here, feeling the night wrap around you. The stars are a map, a story, a quiet promise that some things don't need a plug to shine. You're grateful for the light that's carried you this far, but you're ready to let it rest for a while. You pull the blanket closer, the grass cool beneath you. The world feels big but gentle, and you're sinking into it, your thoughts softening. You're thinking about that first cave fire, that first bulb, all the ways lights shaped you. But right now, the dark's enough, and you're letting it hold you, guide you, until you're ready to spark the light again. You're drifting now, the stars above you blurring into a soft, silver haze. The meadow's quiet, the crickets a gentle hum, like a lullaby woven into the night. You're feeling the weight of your journey, from flickering flames to blazing LEDs, from caves to cities, and it's settling into you, warm and heavy, like a favorite book you've just finished. The light's always been there, pushing back the dark, but this darkness, this starry calm, it's a gift too. You're breathing slower, your eyelids heavy, the world fading into a dream where light and shadow dance together. Let the stars watch over you. Let the night cradle you. Sleep's calling, soft and sure, and you're ready to answer. Good night, dreamer, until the next spark lights your way.